Hi there, everyone. Mychal Bryan here from the Oraculos School of Astrology with next week's astrology for the week of September 28th to the 4th of October 2025. I'm really excited to dive into the astrology of the week ahead. We don't really have that many astrological combinations coming up, truth be told. However, we're going to use today's session as a bit of an astrological Q&A as well. So if anybody has any questions that you would like for me to answer about any part of astrology whatsoever, please make sure to drop those questions in the comment section down below so that I can answer those questions. And for those of you who are just wanting to follow along with the actual forecast, I'm going to have those forecast elements up on the screen so that you can do that as well. Now, as everybody knows, I have been primarily taking all of my delineations for the past few videos from my latest book, The New Western Medical Astrology Pathways Towards the Cosmos Indwelling. And this is the book that I use for the Charlie Kirk delineations, which are currently out on YouTube. We have both part 1 and part 2 of the Charlie Kirk series, and it's only a 2-part series. And that's out on YouTube at the moment. So if you haven't already dived into my delineation of both Charlie Kirk's birth chart, as far as we have a birth chart for him because we don't really have a time of birth. But if you want to check out my delineations of the planetary combinations in Charlie Kirk's birth chart, as well as the combinations that we have in the events chart, please do go and check out that on our YouTube channel with our Charlie Kirk 2-part series. Part 1 is the birth chart, and part 2 is going into the event chart, using both traditional astrology and Uranian astrology, and it was really an exciting exploration of those charts. So please do make sure and dive into that content. Also, if you don't already follow us over on Instagram, please make sure and go and do that. We are at Oraculos Astrology over on Instagram, and you can also follow us and listen to us over on Spotify. So please make sure to like and subscribe to the Oraculos podcast wherever you find us on the internet so that you can keep your finger on the magic and the pulse and the momentum of all this concrete astrological goodness that we're bringing to you over here on the Oraculos podcast. Now, today we're going to be diving into the astrology for the week ahead, the week being September 28th to October 4th, 2025. And I just got reminded to tell everybody that we have our upcoming medical astrology preliminary program, or our medical astrology preliminary course, happening on October 20th, 2025 here at the Oraculos School of Astrology. Our preliminary medical astrology program is a 5-week program. So that means that if you don't want to sit down with me for an entire 2 years and you just want to get straight to the meat and potatoes of everything we teach and do here at the Oraculos School of Astrology as far as medical astrology is concerned, you can join us for our preliminary program, which is going to start October 20th. It's going to run for exactly 5 weeks. Yes, there are going to be recordings so that if you don't have time to make the classes live, you can come to the classes in terms of the recordings. And right after that program is done, we're going to be going into our medical astrology advanced course, which is going to be another 5 weeks. So if you're wanting to dive into this world of concrete planet-based medical astrology that we practice here at the Oraculos School of Astrology, then please make sure to sign up for our upcoming medical astrology preliminary course, which starts on October 20th. I am throwing everything in that course, including the baby, including the bathtub and the bath water, to make sure that that course is as comprehensive as possible, so that if you have always wanted to dive into medical astrology, but you've always felt as if you didn't have enough resources to do so, whether it's because you see conflicting information between astrologers as to what the various signs of the zodiac mean in their relationship to the body, or whether it's because you just haven't found a specific clear system yet that allows you to really go into the heart of what the chart is saying from a medical astrology perspective, then by all means come and join us in our upcoming medical astrology preliminary course, which once again begins this October 20th, 2025, in which I'm going to be outlining everything that we do at the Oraculos School of Astrology. And all right, that's it. All right, let's dive in to the chart. All right, everybody, we're taking a look at the astrology that's coming up on September 29th. Now, the day that I specifically put in was September 28th. And the fact that we're not seeing anything happening on September 28th, it says to us that there's nothing happening majorly in the sky on that day. And this isn't a good thing or a bad thing. It's just that some days we have concrete events that are manifesting in the world around us as far as the aspects are concerned, and other days we don't. So September 28th, we don't actually have any major hard aspect combinations happening in the sky. Go on a vacation, take a break, kick your legs up. I think the 28th of September is a Sunday, so have a wonderful day in the universe because there's not really that much going on. Now, from there, we're going to dive into the very next day, which is September 29th. And once again, for those of you joining us on Instagram, I'm going to flip my camera so that you can see what's happening on the screen. On the 29th of September, we have the moon making her last aspect to Saturn, which is going to happen at 1:43 a.m. EDT. After which the moon is going to ingress into Capricorn, and that's going to be at 5:55 a.m. EDT. I'm going to flip my camera so that you all can see. We have the moon ingressing into Capricorn. Here we have the moon at 3 degrees of Capricorn, 4 minutes. And the reason why the moon is already 3 degrees into Capricorn is because I have this set for midday every day. So this is set for September 29th at midday, but there we see the moon ingressing into Capricorn. Now, moon in Capricorn is a very interesting thing because, as we all know, the moon, when she's in Capricorn, is in the sign of her detriment. Detriment sounds as detrimental as it actually is, because detriment means that the moon isn't having a good time at all. It means that she is suffering, and it means that she's fundamentally someplace in the zodiac that is the exact opposite from the place where she wants to be. When we think about essential dignity, domicile means that I am exactly where I want to be, whereas detriment means that I am someplace where I do not want to be. And so when the moon is in Capricorn, she is 180 degrees away from her home. And can you imagine being 180 degrees from your home? If you're Oscar the Grouch who lives in the garbage can, 180 degrees from your home might be Superwash, which is a laundromat chain in the Bahamas. You know, you might be in Superwash where everything's clean and spick and span. And so similarly, if you're somebody who has a certain level of conditions around you that you really enjoy being in, when you're in your detriment, that means that you are exactly in the polar opposite set of conditions than the ones that actually feel good to you. And so this is what's happening to the moon on the 29th of September. She is in the absolute polar opposite set of conditions than the ones that actually feel good to her. When the moon is in Capricorn, this comes to us from Dorotheus of Sidon. Dorotheus of Sidon, who was an ancient astrologer, said to us that when the moon is in Capricorn, it is as if that person's mother was a slave. And he didn't actually say it is as if that person's mother was a slave. He said when a person has the moon in either of the domiciles of Saturn, that person's mother will be a slave. Now, 2,000 years later, we don't actually talk like that. So what does it mean when we say that our mother is a slave? That could mean that our mom is overworked, underpaid, working multiple jobs in order to try to make ends meet, and she doesn't necessarily feel as if she has the support of people around her to aid her in being more of a loving, compassionate, warm, maternal type of person. So this tends to be true when we have the moon in Capricorn within our natal chart, especially if the moon is afflicted by other planets while in Capricorn. Other planets being Saturn or Uranus or Neptune or Pluto. When we have the moon in Capricorn, it lays the foundation for us to manifest this ancient aphorism of your mom was a slave. And once again, in the 21st century, that can look like the mom who's working multiple jobs. That can look like the single mother. That can look like the mother who doesn't have support from others around her to be a maternal, soft, warm, loving type. I remember listening to Iyanla Vanzant, who I only listened to her because my sister's little name is Iyanla because my mom thought that Iyanla was the best thing since sliced bread, so she named her Iyanla. In the same way as she named me after a famous Bahamian basketball player by the name of Mychal Thompson. Nothing about my name is original. It came from the newspaper, basically. So I was listening to Iyanla Vanzant once, and she said that she was able to be a wonderful father to her children, but she was not able to be a wonderful mother to them. And when she said that, the very first thing I thought about was this combination, or rather displacement of the moon in Capricorn. Because Ianla said that she was able to do everything that a father should have done for her children, but she did not have the tools or the skills or the resources to step into their lives in a maternal way. And I think that that's so telling just about the moon in Capricorn specifically, but also the moon in Capricorn when she is afflicted, whether that's moon in Capricorn square Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, it does not matter. There is this feeling of the mother doesn't have the requisite skills necessary to step into a role of genuine, kind, warm, empress-like motherhood. So I'm saying all of this because on the 29th of September, we definitely have the moon ingressing into Capricorn. And as we know, the moon stays in signs for a maximum of 2.5 days. And so the moon is going to be in Capricorn for that long. And technically speaking, I would normally try to align my efforts with times in which the moon were not in Capricorn, because the moon in Capricorn isn't really the best thing for anybody at all. The good news is the moon is in void of course. We know that a void of course moon is when the moon is no longer making any more aspects in the sign that she is in. So the good news is the moon is not void of course. The bad news is the moon on the 29th of September is going to be in Capricorn, and that may just naturally feel as if on that day there is not enough energetic juice in the air to positively support the sort of efforts that we're wanting to plant in the world in general. It may feel as if there's a lot of heavy lifting. If we were to initiate things on the 29th of September, the energy surrounding those things might be an energy of lots of heavy lifting, lots of pushing the boulder up the hill, lots of planting the seeds into the dry ground, and not necessarily being, or those efforts not necessarily being supported by the universe around us. So those seeds may not grow, or they may not grow quickly, or that boulder might feel extra heavy. So basically on the 29th of September, it's a lovely day from the perspective of the moon not being void. Of course, the moon definitely has a number of aspects that she's going to be making during her time in Capricorn. But the other side of this is that we don't like the moon in Capricorn in general, because when the moon is there, she is like a mother in the middle of the desert who is carrying her children on her back, and she can't find water, not even for herself, much less for those children. So the moon in Capricorn really feels like we don't really have all the tools necessary to be coddled and held by the universe. And if you are looking to be coddled and held by the universe, then the 29th of September is probably not the day that you want to be initiating those things that you want the universe to coddle you on. So for example, would I launch my business on the 29th of September? Not I, said the cat, because I don't really want the moon in Capricorn to be in the event chart for my business. And I think this is something that a lot of us need to start thinking about a lot more. This idea of what do we want to be in the event chart for the things that we're trying to initiate in the world at large? Do you want the moon to be in Capricorn? I think there's still some gel in the front of my hair. I found this gel. I went to this hair store the other day and I found this gel that all the girls in my primary school and high school used to use in their hair, and it's been an absolute lifesaver, but it gets messy. Anyways, let me wipe that off. So anyway, what was I saying? I was saying that when we're planning any event, astrologically speaking, I think we need to be very clear about what we want to be in the chart of that event. Because in the same way as when we're born, we would like for certain combinations to be in our birth chart. For example, I envy people who have the combination of Mars-Jupiter in their birth chart. That's such a successful, ambitious combination. And I'm ambitious for all the wrong reasons. Whereas people who have Mars, Jupiter in their birth chart, they're just ambitious because it feels good and they know that they're going to be successful, and they just know that there's nothing that they cannot accomplish in life. I love a Mars, Jupiter. I don't have it in my birth chart. Therefore, if I could incarnate again and move some things around, I would be born under a sky with the Mars, Jupiter. I would not be born under a sky with the moon in Capricorn, because who wants that? Who naturally elects that for themselves within any lifetime? Sure, if that's a lesson you want to learn in a lifetime, go for it. But in general, that's a lesson that a lot of us could do better off not learning. So the point of all of this is that when we're planning to do anything from an electional astrology perspective, you don't need to have a certificate in electional astrology to know that you basically want the chart of the election or the chart of the thing that you're planning to launch or give birth to, you want that chart to look like a chart that you would like for somebody in general. I know what a good chart looks like, and every good astrologer knows what a good chart looks like. I want my ascendant to be in tip-top shape. I want the ruler of my ascendant not to be afflicted. I want my money house to be doing good if it's something that I'm doing for monetary reasons. I want my career house to be good if it's something I'm doing for career reasons. I want my 7th house to be good if it's something I'm doing for love reasons. I want my 5th house to be good if I'm doing it for fertility or having children. I want my 4th house to be good if I'm doing it for real estate. So these are just basic principles that we can just apply to electional astrology in general, electional astrology quick and dirty, as some people call it, because fundamentally, electional astrology boils down to, does this chart look good in general? Because if the chart looks good in general, then more than likely, you're working with a powerful time that can support exactly what it is you want to do at that moment. Let's get back to the chart of the week ahead. We're talking about the 29th of September, so now let's move on to the next day. Hey there, I see in the chat, Eat Me Skinny Bahamas, hey there, Ellen Key, nice to see you in the virtual Oraculos universe. You know I love you more than cooked food. Okay, now we're going to move on to the 30th of September. On the 30th of September, that's going to be Monday. Oh, no, child, that's Tuesday. The 30th of September is Tuesday, September 30th. And the only thing we really have going on in the sky on this day is the combination of Mercury in a contra-parallel relationship with Venus. And that's what that looks like down there. Mercury in a contra-parallel with Venus. I'm actually going to put an asterisk next to this so that you can see that that is Mercury in a contra-parallel relationship with Venus. That's the Mercury, that's the Venus. A lot of us don't use parallels and contra-parallels within, oh, my face is huge. A lot of us don't use parallels and contra-parallels within our astrology, and that is very largely to our detriment. Because if planets are in a parallel or a contra-parallel relationship within our birth chart, it's as if those planets are in a conjunction, basically. And in the same way as you wouldn't ignore a conjunction in your actual birth chart, you probably shouldn't be ignoring the parallels and the contra-parallels that are in your birth chart. However, modern astrology has us set up in such a way whereas we ignore those parallels and contra-parallels all the time. I'm trying to tilt the screen down so that you all don't see into my nostrils, but as I do that, I realize that the people on Instagram are seeing my Santa Claus pajama pants. My sister bought me these Santa Claus pajama pants about 10 years ago, and I haven't taken them off since. Yes, I do wash them, but other than that, they're on my body. And I wasn't trying to show you those today, but I guess that's where we are. So let me tilt the screen down a little bit and let us have a better visualization of what's going on. Great. So what was I saying? I was talking about parallels and contra-parallels. We should be using them within our astrology. We absolutely should be using parallels and contra-parallels in our astrology. Some people have a very tragic love story in this lifetime, not because they have that in any obvious way within their birth chart. And then when they look at their chart, they say, oh my God, I have such a lovely 7,000. Oh my God, I have such a lovely Venus. And oh, geez Louise, my Venus is making a beautiful trine relationship with Saturn. Why does my love life suck? And then when you go to your contra-parallels and parallels, you see that your Venus is actually parallel Saturn or contra-parallel Saturn. Therefore, even though your birth chart is saying that it's a trine, that declination table is saying that they're in a hard aspect. And we know that Venus-Saturn means separation in love. We know that Venus-Saturn means heavy lifting in love. And we also know that Venus-Saturn is one of the more challenging combinations that we can ever expect to have in this lifetime as far as love is concerned. So in general, we don't really, yes, I love me a Santa Claus. I love me a Santa Claus. Anyway, maybe it's because I have daddy issues. But we know that Venus-Saturn is one of the most challenging combinations we could ever expect to find as far as love is concerned. And it's not just Venus-Saturn. Whenever I say things like this, somebody always starts to throw rocks in my direction because they didn't read that part of the Bible that says you shouldn't shoot the messenger. I don't even know if that came from the Bible, but it came from somewhere. And people started to throw rocks in my direction because they feel as if I'm saying that this one planetary combination within their chart is the source of all of their afflictions in life. Good astrology states that if we're going to say anything to anybody at all, we need to have at least 3 different testimonies or 3 different pieces of evidence within that person's birth chart for us to say it. You understand? So yes, Venus Saturn means separation in love, but we want to see, ooh, this camera's blurry. Venus Saturn means separation in love, but that isn't the only thing that means separation in love. And if somebody is bound to go through a divorce within this lifetime, we need to see multiple things within their birth chart that corroborates that, and not just the Venus Saturn, because Venus Saturn is a great part of our considerations, but it's not the only consideration. So in general, if you're ever going to practice concrete astrology or speak to people in a concrete way about their birth charts, we need to at least see 3 things in their birth chart that points in the direction of the thing that you want to say verbally. Because if you don't see at least 3 things in their birth chart that says that, then you probably shouldn't say it at all. It's like that thing where people say, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say it at all. If you don't see at least 3 things in the birth chart that says what you want to say, then you probably shouldn't be saying it at all. 3 is the number. All right, let's go on. Let's see what people are saying in the chat box over on Zoom. Hey there, people on Instagram. We have the personable coach in the room. We have Just Seek the Truth. NCGR, Puget Sound. I love a whole organization is here. I love that for us. We have Jen. Hey there, Jen. Hey, Ellen. Hey, everybody. I'm so happy to see you all. For those of you who don't already, follow the Oraculos podcast over on Instagram. Please make sure you do so. We are at Oraculos Astrology, and either Melissa or Marlene is going to drop that down below in the chat. Please make sure to follow us over on Instagram so that you can stay in touch and see when we're doing things, because sometimes we post things on Instagram that we don't post on the newsletter. Sometimes we have things in the newsletter that don't go on Instagram. So please make sure that you follow us over on Instagram. And also, if you don't already, subscribe to us on YouTube, which is our huge treasure trove of all things magical. Please make sure to check us out on YouTube. Make sure you hit the subscribe button on YouTube as well. All right. So Jenna is saying that she has Mars conjunct Jupiter. We love that. We love that, Jenna. Lynn is saying that she has Mars square Jupiter. I love a Mars conjunct Jupiter, Mars square Jupiter, Mars Jupiter, Mars trine Jupiter, Mars parallel, contra-parallel, declination, every Jupiter. Mars Jupiter for me is just the best thing since sliced bread. So I don't care how you have it. Just give it to me. Let's swap charts for a day and let me do your thing. Hey there, Jamie. We have Jamie joining us over on Instagram. Hey there, Jamie. Love to see you. All right, now let's go back to the chart and let's see what's going on the 30th of September. What else do we have happening in the sky on the 30th of September? We also have the sun in a parallel relationship with Saturn. Here we have the sun and here we have Saturn down here. Let me see if I can circle that so that you can see that a bit more clearly. Circling it won't even help, not even a little bit, truthfully, but at least you know what I'm referring to. Can we zoom in? Child, I do not know. But anyway, so that is the zoom in, and that is the sun in a parallel relationship with Saturn. Once again, parallels and contra-parallels are really important for us to be considering within our astrology. And the fact that we don't consider them in our astrology is a kind of a big problem, because if you have sun parallel Saturn in your birth chart, it's essentially the same as having sun conjunct Saturn. And we all know all of the issues that can manifest within a life as a result of having sun in any sort of hard aspect relationship with Saturn. And as we can see within this actual chart, I'm going to show you all on Instagram because I love you all just as much as I love the people who are joining us on what is this thing called? On Zoom. We have 20 people on Zoom. We have 10 people on Instagram. Hello to the 30 of you. So as you all can see in this chart, the sun is really not making any zodiacal aspect to Saturn whatsoever, which means the child that's being born on the 30th of September at 12 p.m. is going to go to an astrologer, and that astrologer is going to say, oh, you have a lovely sun. There's nothing bad happening to your sun at all. Little did we know that child is born on a day where the sun is in a parallel relationship with Saturn, which is just as bad as having sun conjunct Saturn, opposite Saturn, quincunx Saturn, everything Saturn. So we need to look at this declination table, astrologers, be the change we want to see in the world, and let's start using declination once more. Hey there to everybody joining us over on Instagram. We are here making this recording of next week's astrology for the week of September 28th to October 4th, 2025. And once again, you can follow us along by checking out my book, The New Western Medical Astrology: Pathways Towards the Cosmos Indwelling, because it's from this book that I'm drawing all of my delineation. So anything that you hear me saying out of my mouth is something I would have first written in the New Western Medical Astrology. Also, speaking about astrology, we have our upcoming Medical Astrology Preliminary course, which starts on October the 20th. I would love to see all of you there on October the 20th, especially if you have ever wanted to learn a concrete, foolproof system of giving an accurate, concrete, event-based medical astrology reading. We need medical astrology now more than ever before. Medical astrology is a wonderful preventative tool that we can use alongside whatever our traditional medical forms of care are. And medical astrology gives us invaluable information that we can take to our local herbalist, Ayurvedic consultant, traditional Chinese medical doctor, to people who are already astrology adjacent, but also working in the healthcare industry. Medical astrology gives us invaluable insight that we can take to those practitioners so that they can formulate a plan to help support our own homeostasis and well-being as optimally as possible. As we know, prevention is better than cure. So if you are somebody who cares about your health and you care about your well-being, or you want to integrate elements of health and well-being into your own astrological consultations with your clients, then by all means join us for our upcoming Medical Astrology Preliminary course, which starts this October 20th, 2025. And you can find the link in our bio, and we're also going to drop that link in the comments section right now. All right, so let's talk about this Sun parallel Saturn on the 30th of September. And actually, I think that we should just go over to the book and read what I wrote about Sun Saturn over here in the book, because it's a nice book and I wrote a lot. So let's go check out what I wrote about the Sun Saturn as a combination. So here we are reading from the New Western Medical Astrology, and it says, Sun Saturn can signify longevity, stability, and a sturdy constitution. Now, this is when the Sun and Saturn are making a positive aspect relationship with each other. This is from page 640 of my book, The New Western Medical Astrology. But in general, in this sort of hard aspect configuration that we see the Sun and Saturn in, here, once again, we see Sun and Saturn in a in a parallel relationship on the 30th of September, which is Tuesday, the 30th of September. In that sort of relationship, Sun Saturn can indicate that the native's father may have been a cold, distant, and emotionally unavailable person. He may have been a strict disciplinarian with whom the native had a very strained relationship. Now let's talk about how that manifests physiologically within our bodies, because these combinations don't just manifest in terms of our dad, they also manifest in our physical constitution. So physiologically, the native may be prone to physical tightness or inflexibility of the body. They may have a slow, sluggish, and melancholic constitution in general, and this combination often points in the direction of skeletal health issues. It also suggests that the native is likely to have inherited a chronic health problem from the father's side of the family. Sun-Saturn further corresponds with lethargy, heaviness, and depression. So whenever we have any sort of planetary combination to the Sun, or any sort of planet in hard aspect relationship with the Sun, or in any sort of hard aspect relationship with the Sun, particularly the conjunction with the Sun, it's as if that planet is highlighting, or rather, it's as if the Sun is highlighting the part of the body that that planet corresponds with. Which is why, as we know, Saturn corresponds with the skeletal system primarily. Saturn also corresponds with the integumentary system. The integumentary system is our skin, our hair, and our nails as well. However, primarily, Saturn is corresponding with the skeletal system. So that is why very often when we have Sun-Saturn within our chart, it can point to our skeletal system as being a very important highlight within our physiological constitution within this lifetime, because it can also point towards a proneness towards skeletal-based health issues. Now, once again, if we're going to say anything physically or anything physiologically from a person's birth chart, we need multiple corroborations to support that. But in general, the combination of Sun-Saturn is the combination for bone tissue. And therefore, if bone tissue is being highlighted within our birth chart, it can be likely that we are more prone towards some skeletal-based issues within this lifetime. Now, on the 30th of September, we're definitely not saying that everybody's going to be prone to a skeletal-based issue, but what we are saying on this day, if we were to step into the realm of mundane astrology, is that this day could be a cold day, a depressive day, a day where we're hearing things that doesn't necessarily make us want to get up out of bed, because Sun-Saturn days aren't days that we naturally associate with success. And as a matter of fact, within Uranian astrology, we have a way of looking at the up days and the down days throughout the entire 52 weeks of the year. And the down days are the days that correspond with Sun-Saturn. So once again, if I wanted to launch something that I wanted to be very successful in the world, I probably wouldn't do it on the 30th of September, because Sun-Saturn is a combination that is oftentimes associated with a great amount of work, a great amount of pressure, a great amount of heavy lifting, but not necessarily feeling as if we're being compensated or as if we're receiving a return on our energetic investment in the way that we would like to receive that return, because Sun-Saturn has to do with work for the sake of the work, not necessarily work for the sake of being paid well as a result of the work that we're doing. So 30th of September is a bit heavy as far as days are concerned, and maybe on this day we're hearing news that makes us feel as if we are all kind of slowed down as a result of the news that we're hearing. It's a bit of a depressive day. Now let's move on to the 1st of October, which is going to be Wednesday, October 1st, 2025. All right, on the 1st of October, we have the moon making her last aspect on this day, which is going to be a sextile to Saturn, and that's happening at 11:33 a.m. EDT, after which the moon is going to be void of course. Now, void of course, what does that mean? The moon is the planet, and yes, we know the moon isn't actually a planet, the moon is a luminary. Once again, don't shoot the messenger, so says the Bible. The moon is a luminary / planet that is the most important, I dare say, well, not the most important luminary, but that is the most important planet from an astrological perspective. Because from an astrological perspective, directly above the sphere of our physical world is the sphere of the moon, which is why the ancients called our physical world the sublunary plane, because sublunary means that we are beneath the moon. Therefore, the moon serves as this vital filter through which we receive all of the nutrition and all of the nutrients from all of the other planets above her. This is a part of why we like when the moon is doing stuff. We like when the moon is making aspects with other planets, because when the moon is making aspects with other planets, the moon is essentially going to be bringing down the vitamins and the minerals and the nutrients of those other planets down to us so that we can use them for our benefit. When the moon is not making any aspects whatsoever to any planet in the sky, that is known as the moon being void of course. And when the moon is void of course, it means that the air is dead. It means that we go out to Porter's Key Dock. Porter's Key Dock is a dock in the Bahamas. It's a place in the Bahamas. We go out to Porter's Key Dock and we go out in our little dinghy or our rowboat and we put up our sail, and there is no wind to blow our sail forward. We get stuck right there on Porter's Key Dock with the crabs, with the conch, because there's no wind to blow us out beyond the dock to go and actually find the crawfish that we're actually looking for. So this combination of the moon making her last aspect to Saturn isn't really something that we tend to like, because we don't like when the moon is doing nothing. We don't like when the moon finds herself in the state in which she is absolutely unable to do anything. And on top of this, we know that the moon was already in Capricorn, which is a sign that she doesn't like being in. Therefore, the moon in Capricorn making her last aspect on this day being to Saturn, the whole thing feels like We just want to throw the whole moment away. So if you could hold off from an electional astrology perspective from doing anything that is overly vital or from initiating any actions that is overly vital, I would suggest that you do so and that you wait until 3:51, which is about 11, 12, 1, 2, 3, which is about 4 hours, call it 5 hours later, 3:51 p.m. EDT, when the moon ingresses into Aquarius. Now, between me, you, Jesus, and the four walls, the moon in Aquarius really isn't that much better than the moon in Capricorn because the moon is still in the domicile of Saturn. And Dorotheus of Sidon held that when the moon is in the domicile of Saturn, any of the two domiciles of Saturn, whether that's Capricorn or Aquarius, it is as if it causes the native's mother to be a slave. Now, this is something that I've found to be true and very true, particularly when it comes to moon in Capricorn. And as you all know, I'm not really a sign to the zodiac person. I don't really get much pleasure from sitting down and talking about any planet in any sign of the zodiac. But there are these instances, such as the moon in Capricorn, which is something that I think is very important for us to talk about, simply because of the fact that it seems to manifest in a concrete way more often than not. And not only does it manifest in a concrete way more often than not, it also seems to manifest concretely by itself. Now, as you all know, I prefer for there to be aspects between things before I say anything about that thing in particular. However, moon in Capricorn all by itself does seem to carry an energy of, my mom is stressed out. My mom is a bit depressed. My mom is overworked. My mom is underpaid. My mom doesn't really have the resources to be a mom in this lifetime. Therefore, I'm the one who had to take care of my siblings. I really feel a fundamental lack of maternal warmth or care within my life because my mother just didn't have the tools to give that to me. This is just how the moon in Capricorn tends to manifest in general. You will never hear me talk about any single planet in any single sign in this sort of way. That's not true. I have things to say about Jupiter in Capricorn. I have things to say about Saturn in Cancer. I have things to say about Saturn in Sagittarius and Saturn in Pisces. I have things to say about Mars in Cancer. So fine, I'm a liar. But the reality is this level of conviction that I have about the moon in Capricorn is something that you typically don't hear me having about planets and signs of the zodiac in general. Moon in Capricorn is a bit of a doozy and it's something worth having language around, especially if you're working with clients, because chances are, at least 1 out of 10 of your clients or 1 out of 12 of your clients is going to have the moon in Capricorn, isn't it? All right, let's move on. I love the Day of the Dead. I love the Day of the Dead too. I love the Day of the Dead. It's the day that gives me the most life. All right, people, let us dive in and talk about the moon ingressing into Aquarius on the 1st of October. That's something that's nice. I like the moon in Aquarius just as much as anybody else. Moon is going to be ingressing into Aquarius, and even though the moon doesn't really have any major level of essential dignity in Aquarius, we still like a moon in Aquarius. And by not having any major essential dignity, I mean that the moon in Aquarius on the 1st of October isn't in her domicile, her detriment, her exaltation, her fall, her triplicity. Now, moving on through, on the same day, the 1st of October, we have a lovely combination, which is Mercury in a square relationship with Jupiter. I'm going to show you that on the screen. Let's see. Hey there, Cameron. Nice to see you. I'm really happy to be back too. It's been a long time coming. All right. Now, everybody, over here on the screen, we have the combination of the Mercury in a square relationship with Jupiter. I love that. I love it a lot, actually. Mercury square Jupiter, can't beat that with a stick. Mercury square Jupiter is a combination that we find in the charts of preachers and teachers and anybody who is using their voice in a public capacity. Mercury has to do with my voice. Jupiter has to do with abundance. So Mercury Jupiter is one of those combinations that's representing abundance comes from my voice. Abundance comes from my ability to teach. Abundance comes from my ability to share. Abundance comes from my ability to be somebody who is a speaker within the world at large. So last week we went through, what did we do? we went through an entire week of me just outlining my approach to natal astrology, and we're going to have those up on our website for sale quite shortly. However, what we didn't do last week was we didn't do a lot of chart reading demonstrations. So as we move into next week, next Monday and Tuesday, we're going to be spending those 2 days giving live chart reading demonstrations right here. And that's going to be on the 29th of September. We're going to be covering soul and psyche, financial astrology, and career astrology. And then on the 30th of September, we're going to be covering family dynamics in the natal chart. That's going to be from 3 to 5 p.m. EDT on both the 29th of September and the 30th of September. And so I sincerely look forward to seeing you in the classroom, because this is where it is. And also, it's a live chart reading demonstration, which means if I get it right, I'll get it really right. And if I get it wrong, I'll get it really wrong. And that's a very important piece of astrological learning that we don't really see on this holy, God-fearing internet. We don't really see a lot of people reading charts, and the ability to read charts in public is the very foundation of what we've always done as astrologers. So if you want to see me read charts in public, where you can ask me every single thing I know and why I'm making every single decision I'm making, and why I said this thing means this versus saying something else that it could possibly mean, then join us next week on September 29th and 30th. You can find out all the information. Those of you on Instagram are going to put that in the chat box below. Marlene is going to put that there. And when she does, I'm going to pin the comment so that you can join us next week, Monday and Tuesday, the 29th and 30th of September, in our chart reading marathon lab. So please make sure that if you want to see me reading charts again in this universe under this current administration, that you go sign up for this event over on our website so you could be a part of that situation. Okay, let's move on. What are we moving on to? Let us see what else is happening in this universe, in this holy God-fearing universe. So once again, October 1st, we love it. At 4:58 p.m., we have the Mercury in a square relationship with Jupiter. Can't beat that with a stick. I love Mercury Jupiter. If I were an author and I wanted to promote my writing, I would promote it on the day where Mercury was in a square relationship with Jupiter. That's happening on the 1st of October. I'm going to show you this again. Those of you who are joining us on Instagram, here we go. And so that is the Mercury at 22 degrees of Libra and Jupiter at 22 degrees of Cancer. If I were an author, I would use this Mercury Jupiter day right up. So if you all get 10 newsletters from the Oraculos School of Astrology, you know that we are taking advantage of the sky, is what we're doing. We're taking advantage of the sky. So it's a wonderful day. If you're an astrologer and you want to get your message out there in the world, if you're somebody who has a business and you want to get your message out there in the world, the 1st of October is a wonderful day to do that, because on this day, the sky is very amenable to supporting any sort of transactions that we're wanting to do. It's a wonderful day to sign that contract. It's a wonderful day to have that conversation with your boss about giving you a raise. It's a wonderful day about doing anything verbally or writtenly. How do you say writtenly? It's not writtenly. Verbally, escritorally. It's the Spanish and the English happening in my brain. But whatever, if you want to do it verbally, if you want to do it in written form, then the 1st of October is a wonderful day to do that on as a result of the Mercury Jupiter. It's a powerful combination for making money as well. One of the things that we take for granted with Mercury is that Mercury is also the god of marketplaces. Ellen is saying in written form. Thanks, Ellen. I still don't think that's the word I was looking for, but anyway. One of the things with Mercury is that Mercury is the god of the marketplace. When we speak about mercantile endeavors, what we're talking about is Mercury. Mercantile refers to the marketplace. Thank you so much, Patricia. So I guess it is written. Okay, sorry, Ellen. I guess it was written. So Mercury has to do with the marketplaces in general. So when we have Mercury Jupiter, as we do on the 1st of October, it's a wonderful day for selling things in the marketplace. I'm going to be selling on the 1st of October, and I'm going to let my team at Oraculos know that this is a wonderful day for us to do that. And I sincerely hope that you take advantage of this day as well, because it's a powerful day and we need to take advantage of it. I just want to see you prosper. I just want to see you prosper and be moisturized and stay alive in this 2025 administration. Now let's move on to the next combination, which is happening on our penultimate day, October 2nd. I think this is the birthday. I think this is Rukenia's birthday. Rukenia, if this isn't your birthday, I'm sorry, girl. I can't even remember my own birthday, but I think this might be Rukenia's birthday. So this is October 2nd at 5:19 p.m. EDT. This is our second to last day. On this day, we have Venus in a Sesquiquadrate relationship with Pluto. I'm going to show you that on the screen. Para que tú sepas, so that you can see, we have Venus in a Sesquiquadrate relationship with Pluto. That's happening on the 2nd of October. And I'm also going to circle that. We have Venus here at 16 degrees of Virgo, and we have Pluto down here at 1 degree of Aquarius. We know that 16 degrees of the mutable signs equals 1 degree of the fixed signs when we're looking for hard aspects. And so we have Venus in a Sesquiquadrate relationship with Pluto. Venus-Pluto is a very challenging combination because Venus-Pluto is the specific combination that corresponds with when Persephone got dragged to hell by her uncle Hades. So Venus is one of the combinations that we correspond with violation in love. It's also one of the combinations that corresponds with abnormal activity that occurs within our love life. Whenever we have Pluto, Pluto represents abnormal growth. Whenever we have Venus, we're referring from a universal perspective to our love life in general. Therefore, Venus-Pluto could represent abnormal growths within our love life. A relationship starts too fast. It starts too hot and heavy. It takes us by storm. It completely crashes through our life. We have no context for how to prepare for it because it just comes out of nowhere and it just sweeps us off of our feet. And before we know it, we're being dragged to hell by our pubic hairs, basically, because it's creating such a level of discomfort within our lives, the way in which that relationship has started and grown legs all by itself, that we don't actually feel as if we can do anything to slow down the momentum of that relationship. And before we know it, it crashes and it burns. That's kind of what Venus-Pluto feels like. Now, from a medical astrology perspective, Venus-Pluto is one of the first combinations I ever started looking at, because from a medical astrology perspective, women with endometriosis were the first clients I ever had. Because from a yoga perspective, a lot of my medical yoga work was specifically with women who had endometriosis. So I had these charts. I started my medical astrology journey with the charts of women who had endometriosis. And so I became very deeply, intimately aware of Venus-Pluto and its relationship with endometriosis. I'm going to read for you from my medical astrology book, The New Western Medical Astrology, so that you can see what I have written about the combination of Venus-Pluto, because it is indeed a combination that is tricky and challenging, especially as far as our reproductive health is concerned. So I'm going to turn this camera and share the screen. Venus-Pluto. This combination is associated with intense and sometimes abnormal experiences within love. It can represent being overpowered or feeling oppressed within one's love life. Venus-Pluto denotes living from one extreme to the next as far as one's love life is concerned. The native, i.e. the person to whom the chart belongs, the native may either be completely engrossed in the matters of the heart and in the pursuits of romantic connection, or completely turn their back on love and sexual pleasure for long periods of time. Now, physiologically, here it is. Physiologically, Venus-Pluto corresponds with abnormal functioning of the thyroid gland and the uterus. And the reason why I put the thyroid gland in there is because Venus also corresponds with the thyroid. However, if you had to ask me, Mychal, which one of these two things would you go with? Would you choose the thyroid or the uterus as being Venus's main correspondence? Truly, I am partial to the uterus and Venus, and I would say the uterus. That's really just me. It is often found in the charts of women. Here it is. It is often found in the charts of women with endometriosis, polycystic ovarian syndrome, or some other abnormal and painful growth within the female reproductive system. And within the charts of men, Venus-Pluto can indicate some malfunction within the male reproductive system, particularly as relates to the prostate gland and the growth of healthy sperm cells. So that is fundamentally how I view Venus-Pluto from a medical astrology perspective. And once again, I couldn't write every single thing I know about Venus-Pluto in the book because the book would have been far too long. However, in general, what I've written in the book are things that I know stand to be true at least 90% of the times. So on this day, the 2nd of October, we have the combination of Venus and Pluto. It's a very tricky combination because this combination is one where our relationships are being dragged to hell. And that could be our public relationships are being dragged to hell, our private relationships are being dragged to hell, or we become deeply aware in the news on this day that relationships between people who should have been solid, between countries who should have been solid, between governments that should have been solid, those relationships take a tumultuous turn. So on October 2nd, we can be sure to hear something in the news about tumultuously turning relationships and about people who should be in a solid relationship severing their ties, because that is oftentimes what we see with Venus Pluto. Venus Pluto also has to do with sexual aberrations and sexual abnormalities. So perhaps the topic of sex becomes a very hot topic within the news on the day, the 2nd of October, either because there is some great abnormal sexual act that's occurring, that's catching the world by storm, and as a result of that, it's catching our news networks by storm, or because the topic of sex and our reproductive health is the high topic for us to be focusing on this day, the 2nd of October. So if you find something out before I find it out, please make sure to let us know in the comment section. So moving on to the 3rd of October 2025, some of the combinations that we have in the sky are Venus in a conjunction with the South Node, followed by the Moon making her last aspect for the day, which is going to be her trine to Mercury at 2:14 p.m. EDT. And then some 8 hours later, the Moon is going to ingress into Pisces at 10:06 p.m. EDT. I'm going to turn the camera so that you all can see this. So here we have Venus in a conjunction with the South Node on this day. And truthfully, Venus-South Node as a combination is a combination that could be particularly challenging from a health perspective, particularly in relation to the things that Venus governs, especially since this Venus is in Virgo, which is a sign that she doesn't like to be in, and she's conjunct the South Node. If this Venus were also afflicted by another planet in this chart, which she doesn't seem to be, but if she was also afflicted by another planet within this chart, this might indicate some abnormal growth within the small intestines of the native, or some abnormal functioning within the accessory digestive organs of the native, such as the pancreas, the liver, or the gallbladder, because Virgo corresponds with the small intestines, but Virgo is also corresponding with the accessory digestive organs in the forms of the pancreas, the liver, and the gallbladder. So if Venus were actually in a tighter relationship to this Pluto, that's what that might indicate. But Venus conjunct the South Node in general, if we think about this from a Uranian astrology perspective, it simply indicates creating wonderful, beautiful connections with others. And that's because Venus in any relationship to either of the two nodes is going to represent, from a Uranian astrology perspective, creating beautiful, loving, harmonious relationships with others. So the relationships that we may have broken on the 2nd of October have the ability to be mended here on the 3rd of October as a result of the combination of Venus and the nodes. And finally, on this day, we do have the Moon, who's going to be void, of course, after making this trine relationship with the Mercury. But then at around 10:04 p.m. this evening, we're going to have that Moon ingressing into Pisces, which is an absolute lovely thing. And the reason why the Moon ingressing into Pisces is such a lovely thing is because when the Moon is in Pisces, it's indicating, let me turn this to us. This is the Moon in Pisces there. When the Moon is in Pisces, the Moon is in a water sign. And we tend to love the Moon in a water sign because that corresponds with fertility. The ancients tell us that when the Moon is in a water sign, it is something that helps everything grow. It helps us grow. It helps the trees to grow. It helps the plants to grow. It helps everything grow. So the Moon in the water sign is something that we actually love to see because that is indicating a period of immense growth and fertility. Also, we're told by the ancients that if the Moon is waxing and in a water sign, it's a wonderful time to cut our hair. If the moon is waxing and in the water sign, it's a wonderful time to cut our hair. And the reason why it's such a wonderful time for us to cut our hair is because a waxing moon in the water sign, as the moon on the 4th of October is indeed a waxing moon in the water sign, is going to represent a moon that's going to cause our hair to grow back in a faster way. So guess what? I'm probably going to get a haircut on this 4th of October because I'm trying to grow my hair back in a faster way. So if you too are also trying to make lunar magic happen in your hair, then the 4th of October is a wonderful day to do that, because here we have the moon waxing and also in the water sign, which is a lovely time at which to make beauty modifications to our hair, because our hair is going to grow back in a more luscious, fiercer way than ever before. Great. People, we did it. This was our astrological forecast for the week ahead, for the week of September 28th to October 4th, 2025. I sincerely hope that you enjoyed this broadcast today, and I sincerely hope that you followed along with us in my book, The New Western Medical Astrology, which once again, you know, this is where I get all of our delineations from these days. So if you haven't already gotten yourself a copy of this book, please do make sure to hop over to Amazon.com and buy yourself a copy today. And if you have gotten a copy of this book already, and if this book has positively changed your relationship with astrology, then I would just like to ask you to take 2 minutes out of your time to write us a review over on Amazon, letting the world know just what you love about this book, The New Western Medical Astrology. As you all know, I'm a self-published author, so if the comments and if the 5-star reviews don't come in as a means of supporting this book, then Amazon won't actually support the book for me. So we're trying to flood the algorithm with lots of love for this book, The New Western Medical Astrology. So please make sure to take 2 minutes out of your time. I would be so grateful if you can hop over to Amazon and write a review for the book, so that the world can know what you love about it, so that the Amazon algorithm can know that people do indeed love this book. And finally, next Monday and Tuesday, I'm going to be giving live chart reading demonstrations. If you possibly want to get your chart read by me live, then you have to join us in our live chart reading demonstrations, which is going to be next week, Monday and Tuesday only. So please make sure to sign up for that on our website. I think it's like $30 or $36 or something to that effect, but please make sure to sign up for that on our website, so that you can submit your chart to be, Marlene is saying it's $30. It's even better, it's $30. I've been trying to charge for our webinars the same amount of money that I charge for these books on Amazon. So these books on Amazon are $36 per book, except for the new book because it's so big, and that's why this book is $39. But look at it. It is $30 for our blind chart reading marathon, which is going to be happening this coming Monday and Tuesday, 2025. Monday and Tuesday, September 29th and 30th, 2025, from 3 to 5 p.m. EDT. And of course, there are going to be recordings afterwards for those of you who cannot make it. I think that's pretty much it, everybody. I think that's it, everybody. That is a complete wrap. I love being here with you. I love having the opportunity to work with you. Thank you so much for joining me here in this virtual space all the time. Thank you for making Oraculos your touchstone for concrete astrology here on the internet. And I cannot wait to see you next week for another recording of next week's astrology, as well as for all of the programming that we have coming up. Until next time, I'm your host, Mychal A. Bryan, leaving you in peace and love and hope. Until we meet again, have a good one. Bye-bye.